Sweet, green button. I'm Ken Venook, Vice President of Sales Development at TalkDesk. I want to start and talk about alignment and accountability today. As a sales development guys, I think we really need to embrace that we are the most important, call me a homer, team in the company, right? We are the lifeblood of the sales team. We oftentimes are a big young team, so we promote the culture. We are the pulse on the floor. We set the tone for the company, and I think that as leaders, we need to stop being kind of like secondary to the VP of sales and kind of step up. And so I'm going to talk about alignment and accountability today and how I've done that in my career to build some pretty big teams. So a little bit about me. I went to the University of Arizona, bear down. I got a degree in finance and put my way through school as a commercial real estate broker, did that for a long time afterwards. And then in 2009, the recession hit and wasn't making any money. So I took a big step back in my career from a VP in real estate and became a SDR at age 30. I grew up at Aptus and then ended up growing a pretty sizable team from 4 to 100 globally at Aptus. And then now I'm at a company called TalkDesk, and we've grown a big team there as well. So I want to start with a story of the beginning of my career in tech as a manager. I was at Aptus, and I'd worked my way through the ranks of the SDR team, was at the top of the board, and I got promoted to SDR manager. So I'm in like my third day or something like that, and my director of SDR is not at work. And so I found out that she was gone. I have no idea. Maybe she was fired, maybe she left. I have no idea to this day. And it was pretty exciting stuff as a third day manager in tech. So I got called into the co-founder's office. That was also equally as exciting. And he simply asked me, what do the SDRs do and why shouldn't I kill this team? And it was pretty encouraging. And I was on my heels. I was older, so at this point, right, than a normal SDR leader. So I was on my heels talking about pipeline and strategic relationships with AEs, and he kind of stopped me from babbling, and he just said, "You got a month to convince me why we should keep this team." And so I developed kind of 3 things unknowingly. I've had to go back and kind of figure out what those things are, but I've carried these 3 things with me on how to basically save the Aptus team, but also now scale these big teams that I've done. And so I'm going to go through those 3 things. So of course I've got a month to save this program. The first thing I do as a broker is I get all the parties involved, right? I learned this in real estate. So I went around to the VP of sales at Aptus. I'm like, hey, what do you think of the SDR team? Can you think of what he might have had to say about the SDR team? Yeah, well, I don't even know what the BDRs do, right? This was also encouraging. Got some notes, what we're doing wrong and how we could do better, and it was a semi-productive conversation considering. So I went to the director of demand gen at the time and asked her, hey, what do you think of the BDR team? What do you think she had to say? Yeah, I wish it was nicer. The BDRs don't follow up and they can't convert, right? I think we've all heard all of these things before. And what I realized is that we just had no alignment. We had no accountability, and nobody knew what the SDRs did. The other leader was clearly hiding. And so, quick recap, I got promoted to manager. Yes, right? Director leaves. This sucks. Let's kill the BDR team. Please no. There's no alignment or accountability, and I got 1 month to turn it around. So these are the 3 ways I figured out how to turn it around. And the first one is stop hiding, right? You got to call your own BS as a leader. I think as an SDR leader, when I was in the beginning, I would kind of wait for stuff to happen and then react to it. And as I've figured out, we got to be proactive. And so stop hiding. And the way that I kind of figured this out, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to look at how many times did I meet with my AE as an SDR and were we successful? And so if you think about how many times do your teams meet on a weekly basis. How many times do you think your team meets? Not on a weekly basis? Once a week? Okay. And what do you think the average is?
Once a month.
Yeah, I mean it's less than a week. It's almost once a week. And this is from the InsideSales.com State of Sales Development. My boy Gabe put that together. And so also in that same report is that teams that meet once a week attain 20% higher quota. And so set that aside, there's a principle here. And the principle is that when you meet with your peers, often it creates success. And so how often are you meeting with your sales leaders? How often are you meeting with your marketing leaders? How often are you meeting with your ops leaders? And so that's what I kind of figured out is in order to get this alignment and this accountability, I need to meet with them once a week. And not only do I need to meet with them, I need to tell them all the things I'm doing wrong, because that gives me the accountability that I need to fix it, right? If they don't know what's going on, I'm just waiting for an email for them to figure out what's going wrong. So I set up meetings, right? This is a current report that I pull for my RVPs at TalkDesk. The numbers won't mean anything, but we focus on 5 things every week, no matter what. We don't skip, because we all know when you skip it, it falls off the calendar, right? Areas of focus, this is reps that are not at 3.5x their pipeline, which is what we've deemed as a company that an enterprise rep needs to cover his territory. So we go through it, and whoever is short, the regional manager afterwards gets a note from me. They set up meetings with themselves, the SDR and the AE, and they go over a strategic plan of how they're going to close that deficit in pipeline, right? So we're doing actionable items to fix pipeline deficits, right? We go through pipeline by stage. I don't care how good your AE team is at managing pipeline, when stage 2 becomes a wasteland. It always has, every place I've ever been. And the only way that it isn't a wasteland is if you talk about it often. But I'd rather talk about it now than December 15th when they clean out 50 million in pipe and all of a sudden you get that email of like, why are we at 2x instead of 3.5x like we were last week? So pipeline by stage, super important I've found to talk about, because I want to know now if we need to get our act together. And then here's opportunities to improve. This is where you call yourself out. There's at least one thing that you need to fix. We all know. If you fix something over here, it breaks over here. And so as SDR leaders, our job is to go around and fix things. And you got to call yourself out. If you don't, you won't fix it. You'll just wait. And I just hate waiting to fix things, right? I want to be proactive and get in ahead of it. The 4th thing we talk about is the quality of the opportunities. This one's uncomfortable. What do your AEs think about the SDRs? The good news is on the first meetings, I guarantee the RVPs haven't asked that question. And so you give them some homework and you tell them to go to their meetings and ask their reps what they think of your SDRs. They will come back to you with some comments. And I'd rather know than to hear about it after a QBR, right? I want to hear this stuff. It's not always fun, but at least you know about it, at least you can fix it. And then the 5th one, which is as important, but equally as uncomfortable, is giving them feedback on their reps. But you just tore apart your org, you told them everything that's wrong and what you're gonna do to fix it, or you talked about what it is, so tell them what's wrong with their reps. Hey, I'm hearing this throughout the SDR team, this person's on the 5th demo, it still hasn't flipped, right? Like, get this stuff out in the open, and once you do, they'll expect it, right? I now have RVPs reaching out to me, hey, can you get some feedback on this guy? Hey, can you get some feedback on that person, right? So it's something that you will develop, and you'll have a nice productive conversation once you get into this cadence. And you're no longer hiding, right? So the other piece, which is a little bit easier, is marketing, right? The VP of Demand Gen. This is our dashboard. You can see we need a lot of work. Fortunately, a lot of that response time has to do with Salesforce reporting, but we do have a lot of work to do. And so we pull it up, and I'll call myself out, right? Our speed to lead is nowhere near where it needs to be. Our touches per lead needs some work. This is what we're doing to fix it. Here's the lead status distribution. There's a ton of people that we're getting that just are too small. We need to up our level of marketing so that as a company, we're not wasting time on these smaller leads, right? And then, of course, call yourself out. There's always something you can do to improve how you're treating the leads and respecting the leads. and then of course giving them feedback on leads, right? So have these conversations, call your own BS. If you're not doing it, if you don't have meetings on the calendar every single week, it's worth a half hour with each group, I promise. So the second piece, I'm going to call my VP of Sales, John Bon Jovi. We're low on pipe and you're to blame. Can someone finish it? Can you finish it? You give sales a bad name. I was going to jump off the stage over, but David said something about insurance. So stop playing the blame game, right? As an SDR leader, we get blamed for everything, right? Your RVP has a hangnail and it's like an email to me about hygiene or something, right? So accept it, it's fine. I'm glad, blame me for everything. You know why? Because then I fix it and then I get credit for fixing it. It's an opportunity to shine. And so stop playing the blame game. And so I came up with a way to kind of remind myself not to blame others when I get blamed for things, not point my fingers. It has nothing to do with sales. Has anyone seen the movie Hitch? There's no Hitch. So for those of you that haven't, it's a movie with Will Smith and Kevin James. Will Smith is like some badass dating coach. He's trying to get Kevin James, his dream girl. There's a scene in the movie where he's coaching him up on the first date and more importantly, the first kiss and how you can't be overly eager. And so he's saying, you know, when you go in for that first kiss, you got to go 90 and then you got to wait for her to come 10. Right? You can't go all the way. So I'll go 90, right? And then she comes 10, right? And so I'll explain it here, right? So stop playing the blame game. But the 90 is you get that email, you get that Slack, whatever it is, this sucks, right? Identify what's going on. What's the problem? Come up with a plan. How are we going to fix it? Who's involved? What parties? How can we fix it, right? We all know how to fix things. Send an email to stop the bleeding, right? Present a little bit of a solution, but set time on the calendar and go through it, right? Go through it with the people that are involved. And then this is the most important part of the 90, right? This is like you coming the 90. Is there anything that I'm missing in this plan to fix this problem, right? They'll have something sometimes, and that's great because that helps me come up with a better plan that I'm going to get credit for fixing anyways, right? So is there anything I'm missing? You might go back and forth a few times. And then you got to ask it again. It's just like a sales cycle. Is there anything that I'm missing now, right? No. Okay, once you've gotten through that, you close that door, and then this is their 10, and you got to kind of help them along with it. But it's what can your team do to help support this plan? And there's always something. But that's when you know that you had a good first kiss, right? It's that they come and they meet you and they give you an idea. Maybe it's, well, our AEs could spend an hour a week prospecting with your SDRs in the same room or whatever it is. But now you've taken a blame game, pointing fingers at each other, and you've turned it into a productive conversation that's two ways. You've got a plan, and now you're marching in the same direction. This has been the secret to every sleepless night I've had as an SDR leader, and I've carried it through. So 90-10 rule. You guys can steal the Hitch thing. I won't charge you. I know, it's great. Okay, so the final piece, and this is most important for, I think, your ongoing success of not only you as a leader, but your team, and that's to get an arbitrator, right? Get sales ops, get marketing ops involved when you're creating your process and you're creating your goals for your team, right? So I took this to my network. I apologize if I spammed you. 1,000 plus sales, marketing, and ops leaders, and I just asked the question, how many sales development leaders are involved in your conversations when it's coming to setting up plans and other SLAs that the team is using? And I got a response for whatever that's worth. But what do you think? What do you think it comes back as? What percentage? Sweet. 23, so more than that, but less than a quarter, right, are talking directly with their operations. It's the first thing I do when I get into an organization is talk to the operations leader, because I want to be involved in that conversation. It doesn't mean that I'm going to go in there and try and dictate everything, but let's disagree, let's figure out what we need to do to agree, and then let's move forward. And so, this is our real SLA at TalkDesk currently. It's nothing groundbreaking. We could all probably go back and forth for the next 4 days on what's right and what's wrong about this thing. But the most important part is it was me, the sales operations leader, and the VP of sales in a room, and we talked about it. What are the qualification requirements? You can see the top 3 are required. The bottom 3 are optional. And this is what it takes to get to a stage 2 opportunity. There's nothing groundbreaking about this, I promise. But the other things that are important is how many days to flip it, right? An AE gets the lead, they have a call. How many days do they have to flip it before they've no longer met our SLA, right? Respect our leads too, just like we respect marketing. The responsibilities of the AE, who sets up the next meeting, who introduces the next meeting, responsibilities of the SDR, who puts in the notes, who flips it, whose job is it to do what. But the most important thing is me and the VP are now in conjunction. We can roll this forward, and guess who rolls it out? Not us, ops does at the sales all hands. So now operations rolls it out, and guess who, if someone has a question about whether something should be flipped, it goes directly to ops. They make a ruling, and I haven't had a headache since we rolled this out, right? It gets rid of that gray area stage 2 that we all hate, right? Where it's like you have to have a conversation every month with the AE team. So then we go to marketing, right? Nothing groundbreaking about this, and this actually needs to be updated. But what lead types are we looking at? This is with the VP of Demand Gen and our marketing operations director. So hey, how fast do you want us to touch these things? How many times do you consider it worked? Have we respected your leads? How much time do you want it before we put it back into nurture so that you can get that feedback loop so we can pull the different levels to be spending our money in the right places, right? Call email distribution. What hours are the SDRs going to be responsible for this? My SDRs are hourly based on whatever federal law or whatever else we have. So you can't hold them accountable for SLAs after hours. So we decided that. But again, the most important part is that we agreed on it, and marketing operations rolls this out in my global SDR meeting. And then guess what this is? This is the topic of conversation for our weekly meeting. So you don't have to worry about not having anything to talk about when you set up your meetings to call yourself out. So get an arbitrator, right? Operations, I can't stress how much it helps with the headaches of dealing with one-off situations, and also just people understanding it. So I've got a few more minutes here, but I'm gonna finish a little bit early. 3 takeaways, right? Stop hiding, call your own BS. I wanna see you guys putting these meetings on the calendar with your leaders. Go ask for it. Get it out in the open. I promise it's better than waiting for it to come undone. The 90-10 rule, again, you can have the Hitch thing. And then hire Judge Judy to snap your team into shape. She's great. If you're ever sick, you can watch reruns of her, like channel 6 or something like that. All right, any questions?
I do have a roving mic, so raise your hand and I will come running. All the way up front, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Service level agreement, SLA.
Other questions? Seriously? Okay, there we go.
Hey, Ken. Is there anything in particular that you're talking with ops about when you want to involve them? I mean, I think it might depend on how long they've been there, if they're new or not. Any examples of that?
Well, so they should have an opinion, I would hope, right? And what they can do is they can call out if I'm trying to be a homer, and say, oh, well, I want to get paid when my SDRs set a meeting with themselves, right? And at the same time, if the VP's like, hey, until there's a deal sheet, no stage 2, they can say, hey, that's not reasonable, right? And this isn't gonna be something that's gonna be scalable or even possible, right? So it just kind of helps, again, arbitrate like who's being reasonable. Now, most of the time it's not as one-sided either way, but that's a third party that's going to sign off on it. And then guess what? When you go through approval to finance, it's not just sales trying to pay themselves, right? So that's the biggest, it's nothing specific, but just to have that second person or third person, rather.
No, this is good. This is my exercise.
Just wondering about alignment for BDRs or SDRs, whatever people call them, to the AE. Are you guys like round robin? Are people aligned? Like you are assigned to this AE or this mini AEs? Like what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so plenty of thoughts. And I think there's a bunch of different ways that you can do it to be successful. I was talking with my boy Jeff about alphabetically assigning accounts and territories. If you want to talk to him about it, it's awesome, I think. But we are paired up, so it creates it's 2-to-1 is what we're budgeted for in enterprise, and it's 3-to-1 in commercial.
3-to-1 SDRs or AEs to SDRs?
AEs to SDRs, yeah.
Does that rotate by quarter or anything?
Like, do we switch them up?
Yeah.
Only out of necessity at this point. I try and keep them as steady as possible so they can form that partnership, helps the SDRs develop. When they get promoted to AEs, they're more equipped to work with their SDR. Hopefully, that's the idea. But again, yeah, I don't know, that again, we could have 6 more hours on that, I think, of what makes sense.
And it's the alpha route, you can still, my ratio is 3-to-1, 2-to-1.
Right,
It's regardless of my routing.
right.
Is there any meritocracy here with the union of the SDR and the AE?
Is it a meritocracy in the union of the SDR and the AE?
Yeah.
In terms of like, do we pair the best with the best? You know, so I have the first month is them setting up meetings, and it allows me to kind of assess where people are and then pair up on a whole number of things. Could be personality, could be that this AE has had a real rough go and the RVP personally asked me to make sure that, you know, the AE gets a good SDR. So putting someone that's more aggressive because they had an SDR before that was more laid back, a whole number of things. That's kind of the art of it, I think. Some people might think that's stupid. I don't know.
Do you shoot for a certain number? Do you shoot for a certain number of qualified leads per month for each salesperson? Like 7 or 8 or more?
Yeah, it's definitely. So the goal is 20 meetings set up with the AE, and ideally that turns into, 10 opportunities. I hope it's 5 and 5, but it's not always that way.
How big is your team, AEs and SDRs?
Let's see, we have 50 SDRs globally right now across 4 teams. I'll break it down. So enterprise we have 30 SDRs, and we currently have 30 AEs, but that's because we're growing and I wanted to get ahead of it so that they'd have pipeline to work. So we'll have 60.
So is the ratio 1-to-1, 1 to
It's two AEs to 1 SDR in the enterprise.
Do you already have some preset meetings or discussions around accounts that the SDRs are calling into that AEs agree on in regards to
The targeting?
Yeah.
I mean, the day that the AEs provide the SDRs with a great, to be the day. Yeah, I mean, that's ideal for sure, is to not just get the spreadsheet with all the accounts and just saying, get me a meeting, right? So that's ideal, but I've learned that it's not going to happen, and so that's where, managers and myself and marketing, we can help kind of target and have them bring something to the conversation. The same way that I bring reports to my conversations with the leaders, the SDRs are expected to bring their target accounts to the AEs, and that usually wakes up the AEs to be like, oh, okay, let's have a conversation, right? And then also they know they'll get feedback from me. Hey, this AE's not bringing target accounts straight up to their RVP, and then I'm the jerk, right? So, and not the SDR. So, thank you, appreciate it.
You can. All right, because you guys clearly are way too excited, we're going to take a break. Just a quick reminder, please do make sure to take your little maps and go talk to all the different vendors out there. The drawing for the HomePod closes at 4:30. So you got a good 20-minute break now. Get out there, go meet all the people, get the signatures and get that. Also, don't forget to be posting photos and come back here. Don't forget, after the last breakout, to come hear Daryl from Vanilla Soft and then have the Beast Awards right at 4 o'clock. So be back here in 20.